My guest today is Miss Margaret Peters. Margaret is a retired senior police service representative too. She recently retired after serving the city of Los Angeles for 31 years. Retired senior PSR2 Peters was a watch commander at LAPD's Communications Division where she supervised over 200 civilian employees and sworn police officers. In 1994, Margaret Peters received honors and recognition for courageously and compassionately talking to an armed man with a hostage for over 4 hours after he refused to speak with Department Hostage Margaret, thanks for coming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I understand that you're a busy person. You're doing a lot of stuff in the community, and I'm just, glad you're taking the time out to speak with me about these issues.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me again.
So, I'm glad that you came on the show, and I wanted to talk to you about a few things, mainly about LAPD and the things that are taking place around the country. LAPD is often recognized as the leading law enforcement agency in the country. It's considered the gold standard by many law enforcement agencies. A lot of law enforcement agencies, model their policies and their procedures after LAPD. And and so when I was watching the incident, all the stuff on the news about George Floyd, I was very surprised to see that their emergency dispatchers in Minneapolis was able to watch the George Floyd arrest. They saw it live. I didn't know that this was possible. I didn't know this technology existed. Does LAPD have that?
Again, to my knowledge, we don't have something, in communications, a program in communications that would allow them to see it live. However, I'm thinking maybe it was a camera mounted on a traffic light, a drone maybe. I don't know what kind of technology that particular dispatcher, was utilizing. Whether it was something hardware in their comm center or whether it was, a drone or a camera at the location.
So when you heard about it, what were your thoughts when you heard that a dispatcher was able to watch it?
Again, dispatchers usually are the first ones on the scene, maybe, albeit telephonically. There are some instances where, there may be a helicopter overhead or something where they, have some type of view of it. But when I heard that the dispatcher was watching it live, I kind of felt a sadness for her, or because there's only so much you can do telephonically. There's once you get the police there or on the way to a situation, your hands are you're done. Your job is done, and to have someone see that a call that they created or a call that they dispatched on ended so horrifically, I can't even imagine what that dispatcher went through after, while watching that or afterward.
Right. Now, the job that you did was very stressful. Being an emergency dispatcher is extremely stressful.
Yes.
Do you think that LAPD would benefit from this technology, or are you guys already doing too much?
It's a difficult question simply because in a lot of cases, society already has this technology. Like I said, you think about the drones, you think about the cameras at major intersections, you think about the Ring doorbell, and what, the technology we have, most homes in my neighborhood already have the Ring doorbells where you can answer your door from almost anywhere with an internet connection, not to mention cameras on phones or whatever. So to a certain extent, we already have this technology. So do I think communications or dispatchers would benefit? It would all depend on the training they got. But yes, I think to a certain extent, if they were trained correctly and if they had the right support systems in place, yeah, I think it could benefit.
And that brings to another point is you guys receive a lot of training, more training than police officers get, and your job is more difficult than being a police officer. I was down there. I did it for a while, and it was very stressful and very hard. And I know that 99% of police officers could not pass training to be an emergency dispatcher. And so I'm wondering that perhaps that you think it would be beneficial to like bring police officers to do some kind of training, joint training with you guys, not
Absolutely. I think we lost something as an organization when they stopped wheeling police officers to communications. You get a perspective on police work and on dealing with people that you don't get on the street. I mean, when you're talking to people firsthand, even if it's telephonically, and you're getting, that information, and you have to decide, how are you going to send the police, how fast you're going to send, what kind of, penal code are you going to, assign to the call, what kind of, case number, whatever. These decisions, I think, go into, perhaps maybe, the police, how the police respond. You have a big influence on how the officers in the car are going to respond. And that to me is invaluable. And I think like I said, we lost a lot when we stopped wheeling police officers through communications.
Now, my stance on defunding the police, I believe that law enforcement needs to be restructured. I don't necessarily believe in defunding them, but I think it needs a big overhaul. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
I think a lot of people have taken that defunding the police thing, and when I say a lot of people, I think a lot of people on the right have taken it to be anti-police, and nothing could be further from the truth. I think that, my community especially, we value the work that police officers do to a certain extent. What we have a problem with is the excessive use of force. So when we say, I wouldn't necessarily say defunding, I would say reimagining. I think that's something that, our community is talking about, extensively now, how we're going to reimagine police work, how we are going to make it so that police work is compatible with the values of our community and with the needs of our community in the 21st century. We have to really get out of the old school way of doing things. And I think because we have so many that are in charge in terms of, the policies and things of that nature, we really need to get out of that thinking. So not so much defunding, but reimagining.
So my next question is that, based on what you're saying is that, many of the police shootings and murders that we're witnessing, and then we're witnessing on social media, they all begin, they begin with 911. The first thing we hear is that officers are saying, well, I had to go to the call because I was assigned that call. Or they'll say, well, you know what, the information that was provided wasn't good. And to me, based on my experiences, it kind of seems like they're deflecting their blame on the dispatchers. And I just want your opinion on, do you see it that way, or what do you, when you hear that, what do you think?
When at first glance, or when you first hear it, yeah, you kind of think like, wow, you're trying to deflect and make it my fault now. Because it's such a high profile, or you messed up, or something bad happened, all of a sudden it's my fault because I didn't, ask what color pants he had on, or something of that nature. But when you think about it further, it's, you have to really take into consideration the fact that they're looking at all sides of the argument. And just because, someone says that doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually the case.
Right.
And, it all comes down, I think, to a matter of being overly sensitive. Sometimes I think when you hear something in the first blush of an incident, because rarely, if ever, do you see that, because the dispatcher didn't ask a particular question that led to somebody getting shot. We have influence only to a certain extent. We do not have influence on the actions the officers take in the field. and I don't care what anybody says, because those actions are independent. You have independent thought. We give you what we got over the phone. Once an officer gets to the scene, they have to make the determination of the situation, and that has absolutely nothing to do with what the dispatcher may or may not have said or done.
Right. Well, when I was a rookie, my training officer told me that was one of the first things I was told was that if anything goes wrong, if there's a personnel complaint, the first thing you do is you blame it on the information that you got on the call. You say, I didn't get enough information. That's why I did what I did. That's a actual premeditated excuse that police officers use. And I know I was taught that. I was taught that. So, you know, I was just wondering if dispatchers are aware, you know, that that's what some officers are doing.
You become aware of it, I think, just through a process of elimination. If you're involved in a situation of that nature, and you see and the sequence of events, you know, or if you get a number of years on and you see a pattern, that's the way you really become aware of it. It's not something that, you know, we're told as dispatchers that, oh, the officers are going to blame the information that you gave them on a call if something happens, so make sure that you get the information right. That's not something that we're taught or told.
Okay. Yeah, because we frequently hear police officers, you know, once they've done something wrong or a questionable stop, we always hear that they fit a description of something, of a call that went out.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I never let my sons wear white T-shirts and blue jeans.
Right.
Fit the description of some crime. So growing up,
Right.
I never let them wear white T-shirts and in blue jeans because of that.
Right.
But when you were working as an operator, I know you were a supervisor, and you know your title was equivalent to like a sergeant too. You were a watch commander. You ran the whole shift. So I'm wondering, when you speak to your employees, your subordinates, was it did you feel something like an obligation when you spoke to them to make sure that they got all the information because where you live and the things you see in the community? Or was it just basically being professional and following your training? Was there anything special that went into your type of training when you talk to people? Did you say, were you kind of hammering it that you need to get all the description, you need to make sure that you try to get a full description, or is that just part of being professional?
That's just part of being professional. I mean, regardless of, does my background, does where I live, does how I raised, all of that, that makes me who I am. But when I'm at my job, I'm being professional, and I would extend the same type of questions and professionalism regardless of the location of the call or who was calling or what they're calling about. So yeah, when it comes to getting, critical or pertinent information, we want to do that on every call.
Right. So the big topic now, which is in the past, LAPD officers and law enforcement officers always get scrutinized, but now the emergency operators are starting to get a little heat from what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, and you see that people are making phony 911 calls and harassing blacks who don't seem to be
right.
Do you, as a dispatcher, have the option of not sending to a call?
Absolutely not. I mean, there certain extenuating circumstances that a dispatcher would, probably get the advice of a supervisor, but as an operator, you're going to send the police. And I say this simply because of liability issues. we don't want to be a judge and jury on a call. You know, I mean, as much as, you know, experience as someone may have, and you may to a certain extent know from voice inflection or just by something that they said that these people are not being totally truthful when they call, but there's that 1% chance that they are. And you know, if you don't send, then, you know, you're looking at the liability issue. So, you know, in terms of, do we have the discretion of not to, or should they have the discretion of not sending? No. Should they have the discretion on how they send? Yes. You know, do you want to send lights and sirens? Do you want to, you know, not sending as a high priority call? Absolutely. If we didn't have that type of discretion, then you might as well just automate it, you know, and just, and you know, let the robots do it. But, you know, yeah, so discretion has its place, but in terms of whether or not we're going to send, absolutely not. We're always going to send the police.
Well, right now, you know, we're talking about defunding and restructuring the police department. What if they came up with an option where if someone gave a description and tried to create a call that was it was a non-emergency call, but a call that appeared to be a racist call, black person using the pool or something like that?
Right.
How would you feel if that was changed and that type of call had to be switched to a supervisor where they would make a decision on send or not send?
You know, there's been a lot of talk about that. I've been reading in the paper where the legislatures are, you know, doing the whole Karen Act thing, you know, where they're trying to legislate, you know, people who call with malintent, whether it's racist or whatever. This is not the first time that people have weaponized the police. You know, we have people that weaponize the police all the time in domestic violence situations or whatever. So this is not something new. How we deal with it now in light of, you know, how it's being used now for you know, racial, you know, intent is another thing. But yeah, it's, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, you know, like I said, we can't, do you legislate it? Do you give dispatchers more discretion? You know, do you make it a supervisory responsibility? I think these are things that, you know, need to be discussed at the table when we're talking about reimagining what the police are and how they do their job, and include dispatchers in the conversation, because like I said, they're the first ones you talk to. So if you don't include them in the conversation, then it's all for naught.
So you've been there, you were at communications division for 31 years. So just, you know, offhand, do you have a solution? Anything come to mind that would help curb this problem that we're having? I know you guys aren't the, you know, the absolute answer, but anything come to mind that would help?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've got to weed out the bias. You've got to train better in terms of the people that respond. I mean, do we have civilians responding with sworn, you know, to diffuse situations? Is that something that we need to do? I think a lot of this comes from bias and not, you know, anything nefarious. People just, yeah, they make assumptions, and because of those assumptions, a lot of, you know, people end up dead. You know, again, you know, the vast majority of it, I think, is just not understanding. And I think if we train better, if we, you know, again, reimagine how police respond. Do we always need to have somebody with a gun respond? Maybe not, you know.
Now
So yeah.
You were a civilian, and
Yes.
you were a watch commander, so you ran your shift.
Yes.
When new captains come in, new lieutenants come in, who are sworn, you guys have to train them because they don't have any experience.
Right. They have no clue.
What about, I know, but what do you think about having an all civilian staff down there? Do we need a captain?
Actually, yeah. Well, I mean, I was always a proponent of civilianizing communications. There's absolutely no need for the sworn component from, you know, yeah, I truly believe a police administrator could run communications and, you know, make a career ladder of the police service representative classification. I mean, you know, all from PSR1 all the way to police administrator. There's absolutely no reason why they need a sworn component in a call center. You know, I get that they say, you know, the whole field perspective, but, you know, when you, in light of what's been going on in the field lately, you know, I would argue that maybe that perspective taints the whole process at this point. You know, if you treat it like a call center, if you treat people that call in like people who are customers asking for service, instead of, you know, the police, and, you know, the police come out, you know, and they do what they do. But if it's not, you know, necessarily a police problem, you know, we answer calls all the time that should probably go to 311 or 211, or, you know, everybody calls 911. So yeah, restructuring it to be more of a call center as opposed to a police station would go a long way in helping some of this.
And I think that'd be a great idea too, because it also gives an incentive for emergency dispatchers. It's more of an opportunity to promote, and you know, maybe that'll help improve morale. I know
Absolutely.
that the job is, you know, extremely stressful. One of the things when I was doing my research that I found, which I didn't know, is that every year when they do polls, that emergency dispatchers are in the top 10 or around top 15 as being the most stressful occupation.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about police officers, you know, suffering from PTSD, but we never hear anything about that, about emergency dispatchers. And I don't even think they fit you guys in the same category as true first responders. So I don't even know if you guys get the same type of attention or have the same type of resources available, but their job is very stressful, even more stressful than being a police officer at times. So I'm just wondering that, have you seen any signs of like PTSD from the people that you supervise?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely signs of it, you know, as you go through in the, you know, most people leave, you know, 2-3 years after they get hired. They get all that training, and then they promote out, or they go to other parts of the city. But for those that stay, you see instances of alcoholism, you know, obesity, you know, health issues, high blood pressure. You know, these are just some of the things that, you know, are attributed, I think, to the amount of stress that, you know, you deal with as a dispatcher. I mean, police officers have a different kind of stress. Yeah, they're out there, you know, face to face. Yeah, they're, you know, they're dodging bullets and, you know, chasing after people. But dispatchers, for every call of the police officer take, a dispatcher has to take 5 of them over the phone. They have to listen to these people, and they have to create the call, and then they have to go to the next call, a lot of times without even getting closure. You know, that tends to wear on a person after a while, and it takes, you know, really fortitude to be able to overcome that. You know, you have to really have a strong faith. You have to, you know, have other strategies, exercise strategies, other strategies, you know, to safeguard your mental health, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're all you've got. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, dispatchers especially, you know, the really successful ones and the long-term ones have developed strategies to kind of cope with what is definitely a, you know, PTSD within the ranks.
Yeah, I know quite a few emergency dispatchers who've had problems with drinking, with alcoholism.
Yeah.
Some of them have passed away because, you know, that was may or may not have been directly related to the job, but I know the job had something to do with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, years ago, you were involved in an incident that took place that involved a hostage situation.
Yeah.
From my understanding, you were on the phone with someone who had a gun and was holding a gun to someone's head, and the incident took place in Los Angeles, and it was for like maybe 4 hours or so. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that affected you?
I think I had 6 years on the job, and I was working morning watch. And yeah, when I think back on it now, I wonder how I did it. But when people call, you really feel as if you're that lifeline, not only to them, but to getting them the help that they need. And this one particular person, it kind of relates to now. He had lost his job, and and he felt like that was it. And you think about what's going on today with COVID. People are losing their jobs, and they don't know what their income is going to look like. People get desperate, and when you're dealing with that, you kind of have to move out of yourself to a certain extent, and talk to someone, in terms of, hey, this, be encouraging even if you don't feel like it, because that, my main concern during that whole incident is I didn't want to hear a gunshot. That was my main concern. I didn't want to hear him shoot anybody. I didn't want to hear him shoot himself. So I said whatever I thought I needed to say to keep that from happening.
Right.
And yeah,
looking
how it affected me. Yeah, I was, for a while, I kind of went home and hugged my kids, and went back to work the next day, because you at the end of the day you got to get a paycheck.
Right. So you
But yeah,
you didn't receive any type of counseling? Was it offered to you?
at the time, that was back in the early 90s. It wasn't really thought that dispatchers needed that type of counseling, because we weren't out in the street. We weren't dealing with it firsthand. We were just on the phone, and it was it was felt as if we didn't need that. It wasn't until later on in my career that mandatory debriefing from a police psychologist became available. But yeah, during that incident, no, I just you kind of brush it off, and keep on moving. That's how we did it, old school.
Right. I know now you guys have, I don't know if you guys are really aware of the stress and PTSD signs and stuff, but I know that you guys are very active. You guys do potlucks. You guys do things that
Yeah.
that kind of bond. Where did that come from, and why is it? Why do you guys do that?
We do that because we realize that we're the only ones that really know, what we go through down there. We realize that, we come to work, and just getting to work oftentimes is a miracle. I mean, a lot of us are mothers. Some of us are single mothers. We're dealing maybe with husbands who are on the job as well, or significant others who are on the job. We may have children, in my case, special needs children. We've got a lot of things going on outside of the job. And when we come to the job, we not only, put our problems on the back burner. Now it seems like we have to deal with the problems of 4 million plus people in LA who are calling for, for police service, be it domestic violence, be it a business dispute, be it a loud party. For 8-9 hours, we're dealing with the problems of everybody else. And then we have to turn it off and deal with our own problems. So we bond because, we know what we go through, and we can talk to each other, and we know that that person sitting next to me knows what I'm going through. And, that's I think what makes us so close, because when we have nothing else and no one else to talk to, we've got each other.
Unfortunately, because of the virus, they're not doing as much down there.
Yeah.
They're afraid of bringing in food and utensils.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering how that's going to affect you guys later on down the road.
Yeah, I retired before the onset of COVID, but I can imagine that it's really affected the camaraderie and the bond in terms of activities and such that communications is known for.
And that leads me to being, my thoughts of being a police officer. We would have parties like department approved beach parties, department approved picnic, a department Christmas party, and nobody would come. None of the police officers would come. There was no bonding, no everybody was an individual. Most of the police officers didn't like each other. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you could think of that would help improve morale or bring police officers closer together, that maybe they can do their job better and not so aggressive.
Wow. um, my whole thing has always been we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the strife comes from, unnecessary political arguments or, unfortunately, you've got the whole racial thing going on,
Right.
you've got the us against them mentality. And that, to a certain extent, I think is detrimental. I mean, if you look at it as community and as you're a vital part of a community and work towards, earning that type of, making that work, in terms of how you treat people in your community.
Right.
That in turn, gives you a better sense of worth and I think a greater sense of purpose. And when you have that, I think you get along better with your coworkers. And it's a cumulative effect. If you feel better about your job and what you're doing and how you're doing it, then you get along better, and your organizational culture, for lack of a better term, kind of skews more towards togetherness and camaraderie than the whole separate thing.
Right. Well,
But yeah, it's all about changing the culture, and nobody could do that but the people that are in it.
right. Well, I totally agree, and I want to thank you for coming on my show. Your words are very valuable, and hopefully someone important who's a decision maker will listen and make some changes, some necessary changes. But
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on, and enjoy your retirement. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate it. And thanks for doing this. I think this is something that's really needed in terms of getting input from the community. I mean, we've got surveys and things going on, in the community where they're trying to get input on how to reimagine, or restructure the police department. So I think what you're doing is really helpful, and I encourage you to keep on doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. I encourage you to keep in the community and doing what you're doing as well.
Okay.